July 31st, 2006, 3:07 p.m. on Monday. I don't know who I am. It's like the traditional struggle of the angel and the devil on each shoulder. What I want isn't what I want, and I don't want to want what I currently want. I just want to be a good person, a genuine good person, and do something great with my life. That is my aim and desire, to overcome the carnal part of myself.
Run, devil, run, devil, run, devil, run, run, devil, run, devil, run, devil, run.
If you start a sentence with homosexuality as a Mormon, you have to end that sentence with is a sin.
I really realized it, I don't know, maybe around 8th grade, but it was kind of like one of those denial things where I was like, no, I can't be right.
I remember reading The Miracle of Forgiveness, which was from Spencer W. Kimball, who was a prophet when I was a young guy. And in his book, The Miracle of Forgiveness, on one page he starts talking about masturbation. That if you start masturbating, then you're going to become gay. And if you're gay, then it's just a slippery slope. Then you're going to start messing around with animals and getting into bestiality. And so he makes this amazing leap from masturbation to sex with animals in 2 pages.
I've always felt a lot of pressure, just in a general sense, being in the neighborhood that I am. We live in very suburban Mormon areas, and everybody knows each other, and you can't walk around the neighborhood without saying hi to somebody that you know from church.
These issues are really poignant in Utah because of the proximity to the church. And the Utah State Legislature is predominantly Mormon, and so they legislate according to their theological beliefs. And so it becomes particularly stressful, especially during the legislative session. You know, a couple of years ago we had 4 anti-gay bills up on the Capitol. You know, and people fighting for these things tenaciously because they believe that they're doing the work of God.
Unless you have a real close encounter with somebody who is gay, it's very easy to dismiss that, certainly with the religious rhetoric that we use, to say, well, everyone has challenges. Everyone has something they have to overcome.
I really hate the idea of people just treating me different in general. Like, not even like shunning me or anything, but just like regarding me differently. That's the part. Because like, it is a part of my life, but people tend to think of it like when you say that you are gay, they tend to think that's all you're about.
I grew up as a Latter-day Saint. I was born and raised in the church. In fact, I would not physically exist if it weren't for the Mormon Church. My father was a convert who met my mom in sacrament meeting. My mom is a multi-generational Mormon, and they met together, and then they got married and had me. So literally, I owe my very existence to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
My family was baptized when I was 6, so I grew up in the church, but with parents who were converts. I think it's a little different still because their testimony is just so strong and active right from the start.
It was kind of like, yeah, I go to church on Sundays because my parents make me. And it was just what we did on Sunday. I just got used to it.
My dad never wanted me to go to church because he wanted me to. I mean, like, he wanted me to go to church because I wanted to. He wanted me to get involved in the religion because I wanted to. He never wanted me to do it because he pressed me into it.
When the thought first came to me, well, I'm attracted to men and not to women, I must be gay, I felt like I was unworthy even though I hadn't done anything to violate any of God's commandments.
I first thought I had the feelings when I was 17. I had feelings for a female friend, and I didn't do anything about them because I thought that meant that I was, weird.
And I stuffed it down so deep so that I wouldn't have to deal with it. And the Mormon law of chastity is really something you can hide behind, because you like, if you go on dates with girls, you can well, I have to be chaste, but the truth is you have no sexual desire for them.
In 1966, in the Salt Lake Mormon Temple, I married a very dear man, Gerald Pearson, who also happened to be a homosexual man. And we had discussed that upon our engagement. But he wanted very much to have the kind of life he had been taught was the only way to live. And I, of course, being very naive, both of us being naive, both of us very much in Utah, and believing that this is just a matter for repentance.
My dad has always been the real religious part of my family, and my mom, not so much. Like she went to church and all that when I was younger, but by the time we moved into our new house about 7 years ago, she started going less and less. Like she'd take the midnight shifts in her job, and then she just stopped going altogether, and then they got divorced, and so they both remarried, and so it's kind of like the two sides. My dad's family is real religious, they go to church all the time, and my mom's not.
It took a lot of courage from Gary to talk to me about it, and he said he was going to talk to his mom as well. It was a tough time because we were going through our divorce, and I just told him that I was supportive of whatever he wanted to do.
The next day he went and took me to see Brokeback Mountain, which I thought was completely strange.
Well, Gary has 3 stepsisters, and his stepmom and his sisters all know about it. I've talked about it. They didn't know about his orientation until this movie came up, and so I just let them know. They didn't seem very surprised. I don't know about you.
Told them.
Huh?
I didn't know you told them.
Yeah, Tom. Sorry. Gary's 19 years old. I would have, my hope for him is that he'll go on an LDS mission.
On the subject of the mission, so I don't know, I've just never really thought about it that much, and then when I realized my conflict, it was kind of like even more distant. Like it just didn't seem like any sort of reality. I just don't know if a strong enough testimony to really allow myself to go. I don't know if I could do it.
I went through all of the rigmarole, filled out the papers, got my wisdom teeth out, and was going to go on a mission. And instead of sending me a call, they sent me a letter explaining that they would not be issuing me a mission call because of my emotional challenges, they said. And I think getting that letter was the most painful thing that has ever happened in my life. There's just nothing that I can compare it to.
He came and told me about a friend that he was infatuated with for a while, and I've known the boy. He's okay, nothing special about him as far as I'm concerned.
I remember Boyd K. Packer wrote this, he delivered this speech, and it was in a pamphlet form. I think it was called For Young Men Only, or something like that. And it told the story of a missionary, I think, who was hit on by a gay person, and the missionary hit and knocked out the gay person, and then Packer goes on to talk about how this is a just this is a good response to this, and so you're seeing all this horrible stuff going on, and then there's your best friend that you have this huge crush on, and it is tough.
The biggest thing was when I told the friend that I liked. It was a really strange time, and I just told him one time coming back from work, and the first thing he said was, "I doubt it." And I didn't know what to make of that, and he's like, well, I don't think you are. And, you know, it was kind of like, you know, because I liked him, it had so much more punch to it. And it was just, I don't know.
I think there were just two choices: stay with the church or act on my feelings, because I don't think there's an in-between.
I guess what the point is, I've acknowledged that both sides exist, and I'm just trying to either decide between the two or find if there's a way that they can coexist. I don't know, just trying to get through this problem because I'm sick of dealing with it.
I met a man who was my priest-quorum advisor, who was also involved in a group called Evergreen International, which is if you ask them today, they don't talk about change anymore, but they practice it whenever there's not a microphone around. You probably shouldn't put that in the documentary. I mean, you shouldn't put me saying that in the documentary.
The general consensus was, with enough faith, you can change your orientation, and I had more faith than I knew many people had, and it still wasn't changing anything.
I've heard about different things that happen to some people, like just some horror stories, you know, the whole electrotherapy or whatever it's called, and just that sort of things. And I figured that they would probably tell me the things I already knew anyway.
There is a palpable dishonesty. There's a list of things you don't say. There's a list of questions you don't ask. And this was really driven home to me. They had an open question and answer session during one of the conferences. And one of the questions that came up was, well, if there are all these men who have successfully, they don't say changed, they say transitioned out of homosexuality, where are they? Perfectly valid question, right? Well, the presenter who was answering the questions, there was a panel of them. The guy that asked or that read the question took it himself. He looked at the floor and he said, "They're all around us, and they've completely blended into society." That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't buy it. If it were really happening, we would have it in testimony meeting every week. I was gay and now I'm straight. We would hear it over the pulpit, and we don't.
Then the other extreme would be, as I've read, like, I guess you can stay in the church, but you just have to be completely celibate.
I see a lot of people decide to be celibate. It's an easy decision to make because it's kind of a default position, you know.
I believe that acting on them would be a sin, or continuing to play them out in my mind would be a sin and would be detrimental to my goals. But I had to just come to a point where I realized the feelings weren't going away, and I had to figure out how to live obediently. And that was really hard at first. It was actually very, very tumultuous and traumatic and difficult. But after an amount of time, and it was a few years, it actually became quite simple and much easier. And today, actually, it'd be easier for me to say no to somebody trying to get me to go that way than to say yes to them.
Like, I feel as if I'd be there, if I had done that, I would have to shut out that part of myself and, in a sense, go back to disliking myself again and always having to push that back down, keep it away and shun it. And, you know, it sounds simple, but it's really, really self-destructive.
You're asking somebody to take that desire for intimacy and, first off, say, my desire for intimacy is somehow wrong, and two, commit to never even trying to fulfill it. I think that's really harmful to these people. I think that's what makes them so unhappy.
The intense pressure on the men to change or to put away who they are is so extreme that the rate of suicide in the LDS gay population is very, very high. And you may know that Utah has the highest suicide rate in the nation for young men between the ages of 15 and 24, which is a huge indictment of our society.
I just was like, I'm gonna try this. I'm just going to, I'm open-minded, I'm liberal, and I feel this, and so I'm just going to see what it would be like. And so I came out and I met my first boyfriend, just a few months later, and I fell in love and with this guy, and it was magical. It was scary. It was beautiful, and it was tender, and it was spiritual, and it was that first love, and it was huge and big, and it was very adolescent too, and the intimacy, the friendship, the romance was so beautiful to me. And I was like, wow, yeah, this is real. And it's not dark and degraded and debased. It was fantastic. And I knew then, I was like, oh yeah, if there is a God, this whole beautiful thing that we're creating is of God.
I had gotten to a point in my life where I realized that I was not going to become straight. And so I started exploring the alternatives, and I met someone on a dating site online who said on his profile that he wanted to be active in the church and in the gay community, and he had listed Mormon as his religion. I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. I better find out what that's all about. And he introduced me to LDS Reconciliation, and I've been pretty much a regular attender since then.
I at least want to know what their take on the situation is. I just want to know how they deal with it, because I've never met anybody with the same sort of issue, so that part to me is pretty interesting, at least just to find other people.
LDS Reconciliation is a gay-positive, LDS-positive scripture study group.
In a nutshell, the purpose of reconciliation is to give us, you, an opportunity to reconcile. It's a personal reconciliation of reconciling who we are as gay men and women and reconciling that with our faith.
I got in there and I was feeling really shy and all of that. There wasn't really anybody my age or anything like that, so I was just kind of off balance. But it took a lot less of a time than I thought it would for me to get comfortable. I never really took the perspective of looking into more of what the gospel is saying rather than how the church organizes it. Made sense of how they were interpreting everything, and I don't know. I don't know. It just made a lot of sense, and so I feel that it's more that their perspective is more of a choice now. It's more of a prominent path, because as I've said before, up until now I thought it was either have to be one or the other, and though it's not as cut and dry as the other two, it does seem like there's more of a way to go with not choosing.
It's pretty simple. You parse things carefully, and you realize that the Mormon God never actually said that homosexuality is wrong. That's the Zoroastrian God that's speaking, not the God that we're supposed to be worshiping.
So I did choose. I did choose to leave the church. I had my name taken off the church records.
For the past 7 years, I've been with the church and active and worthy and doing the things, holding callings. And I'm divorced now, but I still stay away from sexual relationships with women and find more peace in doing that than I ever did being there.
When someone tells me that I can't be a gay Mormon, I tell them to watch me. I say, just you wait.
My experience of my husband and his very authentic anguish over his love for his church, his love for me and for our children, and his knowledge that the way he was constructed inside, emotionally, psychologically, sexually, was something that would not allow him year after year after year to stay in a life that made him be a stranger in a strange land. We agreed to try to maintain and figure out some way to save our marriage, and that included a move from Utah here to the Bay Area in California. After 4 years, really, 2 in Utah and 2 in California, of intense struggle, it was clear to us that in order to salvage our friendship, we had to end the marriage, which we did. And 6 years later, Gerald passed away from AIDS. And that was, in fact, right here in this room where I was taking care of him at the end.
I just got back from that reconciliation, and I don't know, I just feel kind of calm. I don't know, I just feel different, I don't know. Feels pretty good.
If they're in the self-loathing phase, that's cool. I hope you don't stay there. I hope you move out of that, you know. If you've moved out of that but you're really angry at the church, I've been there. I know what that's like. That's great. I honor that. I hope you move out of it.
Especially our community, certainly other religious communities, but certainly the Mormon community, needed tremendous more understanding of this issue than we had.
Who told you that homosexuality was wrong? And who told that guy? And who told that guy?
Jesus says, straight is the way, and narrow is the gate, and few there be that find it. And every single religion will say to you, we are the straight and narrow path. So come, the only way you can get to Jesus is through our organization. My take on Jesus is a little bit different. I believe that it's so difficult for us to find that path because it's an individual path. And the reason why we don't find it is because we're so busy following the paths paved by other people.
I do not know where my love lies or where my faith resides. All that seems true is my body, and sadly it is suffering from all of my mental strain, not to mention the lack of sleep, which I am continuing at this moment. My dad and it seems like a bunch of other people believe I am destined for great things. My own patriarchal blessing says I will be important. It puts a lot of weight on me because I feel more and more I am losing touch with the church as far as belief. I want to live happy, feeling in control of my life. I want to find real love. I want to be remembered, and I want to leave a mark on this world. And I want to be somebody in the next world if there is one.